So hello everyone. It feels so great to be back at SANS New to Cyber Summit. This is my third summit and it's my first time presenting, which means I'm a long-time listener and a first-time caller. Before I get started, I wanted to give a big thank you to everyone in front of and behind the scenes who make these events possible and for providing us the opportunity and platform to share our stories and experiences, as well as our lessons learned with you all today. So thank you, Emily and Rich, for making this happen. And thank you also to all the other presenters. I've learned a ton, and I hope you have as well. And of course, thank you to Ashton and her mini masterpieces, which honestly is the real reason why I wanted to do this in 2025. So hello, my name is Aaron Yerian, and I have been cyber adjacent for a little over 6 years now. I started my IT, InfoSec, cybersecurity journey as a business analyst, progressed to IT security project coordinator as a contractor, and then was able to convert full-time to IT project manager. In January, I recently graduated from the SANS Technology Institute, that's the college, Go Sentinels, where I completed their cybersecurity engineering graduate certificate program. So there's more to me than just that, and I'll reveal more as we progress through my presentation. But what I want to focus on now is the major theme for today's talk, and that's my two core philosophies. First, how you define a word or idea for yourself influences how you perceive it and ultimately shapes your views, your beliefs, your opinions, and your reality regarding that word or idea. So how you view the world defines your reality, or perception is reality. And I know there's some people in Slack who are probably snickering at this right now because yes, it came from the military. So that's my first philosophy. My second philosophy is self, path, tribe. And you've heard variations of this all day long. And I think it's really important. Three short words with a huge impact. I think about self, path, tribe almost daily. And it truly helps me to keep my thoughts, ideas, plans, goals, and actions all aligned. And that's what's critical to long-term success, is having alignment between all of those different areas. So how you view the world defines your reality, and self, path, tribe. So in our time together, I'm going to relate these two philosophies to my 5 lessons learned. And those are the answers to the following questions. 1, what does it mean to be cyber adjacent? 2, what does cybersecurity mean in these types of roles like project coordinator and project manager? What is the business value of these types of roles like business analyst? So that's the day in the life of portion of our time together. And the last 2 lessons learned that I have are personal experiences in my own journey. That's how do I stay current and how have I charted my career progression? So go ahead, feel free, write down those 2 key concepts and keep thinking about your own answers to those 5 questions. And I hope you get a lot of value out of our next half hour together or so. So sit back, relax, listen to my story, and enjoy the AI-generated digital wonderland I've created for us all today. So first, I know it's the close to an end of a very long day. I've been taking notes all day long, just like everyone else, and I know a lot of what I'm going to tell you may seem repetitive because it's something that I call a universal truth. And I think Jay James, he did an incredible job this morning setting the stage for everyone. So now we all have a better understanding of what cyber is. What does it mean to be cyber adjacent? How does that come into play? And why should I care? So before I start with my first lessons learned, it's very important for me to define what cybersecurity means to me. And as Rich said in my introduction, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that over the next several years, cybersecurity roles are expected to grow 32%, which sounds great on paper. But if you spent more than 5 minutes on LinkedIn, or if you've applied to a job recently, or even turned on the 5 o'clock news, you know that reality is a bit different than that analysis. But the good news is, and this has kind of been a theme throughout the day in Slack, we're all here together. People were asking earlier about what are some free things that I can go to network with. Well, you're here right now. And which means we're all headed in the same direction together. So please take time to network with each other in Slack and afterwards on LinkedIn. So during my journey and over the past 6 years, I've been a member of 4 different nonprofit and for-profit organizations or governing bodies. Each one has their own lineup of certifications, and I'm not going to get into the who's and what's because that's not important. What is important is that each organization has a different definition for cybersecurity. We hear it referred to as the industry, but industry experts cannot agree on a common industry definition. What you will get is debates on the minutia of infosec versus cybersecurity, or you will get a laundry list of never-ending acronyms and buzzwords. In fact, one pretty well-known cybersecurity certification out there, when I put my presentation together, mentioned cybersecurity 32 times on their website without ever defining it. So you're probably sitting there right now asking yourself, this is great, Aaron. What's your point? Well, it goes back to my first philosophy. Perception is reality. When I think of, or when I talk about cybersecurity, I think of it in two parts. One, it's a specialized version of risk management. And two, it's security in general. And this is a pretty big paradigm shift in thinking. And it came about over the course of several years. Just like everyone else here, I've been trying to break into cyber for so long. You hear about feeder roles, and you heard a lot about the hard cyber roles today, and they were all great. You hear about the SOC, you even heard about GRCs a little bit, and I'm not here to debate any of that. But what I would like you to keep in mind is the T, whether it is IT or OT, stands for technology, not trouble. And security is a function of technology. So think of your car. The first cars, they didn't have door locks. The Model A or the Model T Ford, they didn't have keys. They were started by a hand crank. And pretty much every single car looked about the same. Over time, we started to add ignition switches, key tumblers, door locks, car alarms, automatic door locks, GPS tracking, and so on and so forth. And you hear about that kind of concept all the time in cyber. You hear secure by design, secure by default, shift left, whether it's systems or software development lifecycle. That's that kind of concept. That's that kind of mindset. Well, in the same way, whatever role you have, if it's working in information technology or information systems, or it's a support role that supports one of those roles, there's an aspect of security involved. We all have our own roles to play because cybersecurity is a team sport. And this was a huge paradigm shift for me. I'd spent so much time, money, effort, much like a lot of people, pursuing certifications, education, networking with individuals on the internets. And honestly, at times it felt like I was chasing my own tail. And then suddenly one day I woke up and I realized that I may not be in a traditional cyber role, but as a project manager, I've been working in cybersecurity all along. I don't really need to break into cyber. Perception is reality. So then what does it mean to be cyber adjacent? So being cyber adjacent means bridging the gap. And the gap exists between the business, right here, and it exists between the tech stack. So that's the first gap that you have to bridge. And then inside technology, you bridge it between the technology, the operations centers, and the security teams. So those are the two gaps that exist in the cyber adjacent world that you can help bridge. So if you're out there listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, I don't have a traditional technical background, but I do have business experience, or I have experience in some way, shape, or form. Or if you're a storyteller or you're a writer, well, and you're looking out there into what's there for you, well, these types of roles can be for you. So the business analyst, the project coordinator, the project manager. And in my experience, there's a lot of overlap in these roles. There's a lot of similarity. But keep in mind, in different industries, in different companies, they're going to have different names and titles for these different roles. So first up, business analyst. So the business analyst role, these are the protocol droids of the cybersecurity world. They take technical jargon as an input and they spit out businessese, and vice versa. They'll take business requirements from systems owners or the board, and they will translate it to where technical teams can understand, here's the expected business outcome. We have to build this. So their mission is to communicate risk in the form of threats and vulnerabilities while also documenting methodology, processes, and procedures. We take required business outcomes and deliverables and help the technical teams develop plans and define steps to drive business value. And then we communicate that back and forth. Communication is a huge word. It's going to be a very repetitious word throughout my presentation because it's a lot of what I do. Communication is very critical to long-term success in cybersecurity. So next up, project coordinators. So as a project coordinator, you keep your eyes on the bigger picture. You help build relationships, help break down silos between different teams, and you help them connect the dots and aid with the flow of communication again, back and forth. And then finally, very similar to the coordinator role, we have the project manager here, and he's a very dapper looking fellow looking at all of his different reports on the backside, which is probably a blank sheet of paper. But just like a business analyst, they're slightly more involved and they can help with progressive elaboration or helping teams define requirements, set boundaries, and define goals out of ambiguity. We drive business cases and help break down technical challenges, and most importantly, help teams remove barriers through either dynamic problem solving or issue escalation between different teams in the business. And I know that's a lot to take in. And at a high level, that's a pretty standard view of what the average day in the life of looks like. It's a lot of communication. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of notes, documentation, and dissemination, which, by the way, we talked about it earlier. AI can help automate a lot of that nowadays. So your next role could be a lot closer than you think. So as I continue, it's very important to start with this clear definition. And I'm going to reiterate, it's my version of the truth. And it's going to be different than your version of the truth. And that's what it means to me to be cyber adjacent. So if cyber adjacent is only part of what I do, what's the other part? Well, the other part, and for this, I'm going to tell a little story. And I want to really thank Kirk earlier for coming up with his pyramid of priorities. So my last role that I ever applied to was as a part-time customer service representative at a bank 6 years ago, this month, actually. That was the last role I applied to. Every other role since then has come from my tribe. And so as a business analyst, when I went from customer service representative into the same organization as a business analyst, this next story is a great example of how to make your own opportunity out of something. Because when you're cyber adjacent, there's a ton of opportunities out there to work with a cyber related function. And so without further ado, we're going to go on a fishing trip together. So yes, if you work at a bank, you care a lot about phishing attacks. So while working in a small community bank, we had a remedial action. It was required for not doing so great on a phishing simulator for a recent audit. It was a federal audit. And this portion was responsible for determining if we had an effective training and awareness program. And honestly, I could tell you right now, looking back 6 years ago, we didn't. There was a widespread culture of, well, I could click on anything. It's IT's responsibility to fix whatever I break. And that's a pretty tough challenge to meet. And it's a pretty tough challenge to overcome. And so what I learned in this experience 6 years ago was another very important lesson learned. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So keep that in mind. And at this point in my career, I had taken a couple of online cyber classes. I think I just finished the Security Plus, and you know, cyber was the cool thing. COVID had just came up. You know, all the cool kids were doing it. And I had started going to all my different resources and ISC2, ISACA, CISA, and I was developing a SharePoint page. And I was putting together weekly emailers, and I was sharing lessons learned. I was publishing newsletters, sending them out to everybody in the company on how to spot phishing attempts. What do you do when you think you've received a phishing email? I had procedures written out and I had everything annotated, and I went all out on this. And I was starting to get disappointed because a couple months in, we weren't getting the results we had hoped for. The same people were falling for the same phishing attacks, and we were going through the same policy and procedure. You know, we'd sit down and we'd have the same canned remedial training, and then a couple weeks would go by, they would pass a couple of the simulated phishing tests, and then about a month later they'd fall for it over again. How do I break the cycle? That was the question. I was like, how do I get through? It's the same people. And I realized that for them, because I asked them, the most important thing for them wasn't their job. The most important thing to them was their grandkids. It was their loved ones. It was their elderly customers. It was keeping their family members safe. Everybody wanted to like to make sure that they could feel safe. And so I changed the narrative. I broke the cycle by shifting what my message was. Suddenly, people started paying attention. Engagement skyrocketed. They were starting to interact. They were sharing actual phishing emails that were real attacks with me. And I was starting to talk about these and putting out and develop real-time alerts to help identify these emails to help keep everyone safe. Engagement skyrocketed. Why? Cybersecurity can be people-centric. It's not all technical. So in 6 months, we went from terrible to terrific because no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's the perception is reality. This is also I wasn't working in cyber, but I started to realize that most businesses, at the heart of a business, they're really a technology firm because everybody has an IT department. They're a technology firm that performs a business function. Your bank is not a bank. Your bank is a technology firm that has a core processor that processes transactions overnight and performs a financial function as a business. And that's a huge shift in mindset. And it was pretty profound for me because I realized there's a ton of opportunity to work with cyber while not being cyber. So look for those opportunities to cross over. Look for and create those kind of opportunities and take advantage of these to apply what you know to help solve business problems. That's really what I do. At the end of the day, that's what I do. I solve business problems. So that was my first exposure to cybersecurity professionally, and I think that's a great lessons learned to share with everyone. So from there, I moved on to other roles and other projects and everything, and worked on zero trust networking and so on and so forth. And so if cyber is part of what I do, then the other part is the business aspect, right? So this is what AI thinks a business looks like, and this is my third lesson learned, and I know this is semi-repetitive. But how do you generate value? And here you have the AI, the supercharged power plant deep in the core of Cyberlandia, apparently. So earlier I mentioned my personal viewpoint of cybersecurity is managing risk, and cyber risk is business risk. So as a project manager, one of my main functions is communicating among all stakeholders in a project. So there's business owners, there's IT leaders, there's engineers, technical experts, end users, executives, other project managers, and even customers. The most important aspect of all of my communications has always been and always will be identifying, prioritizing, mitigating, and communicating risk. Other project managers out there, I know they're going to have a different opinion, but to me, in my experience, this has been the case more often than not. So what does that look like? Well, if you're kind of like me and you have a little background in cybersecurity, then the opportunity can look like this. Let's say your security team is onboarding a new application, and this application looks like a vulnerability scanner. So they really need help with herding cats. They need help with prioritizing findings and communicating with the different teams, breaking down silos between application owners and the security team. Now, I'm not standing here saying or claiming that I have in-depth engineering expertise or knowledge, but having a high-level understanding of security requirements, cloud architecture, has really made it very easy to organize, prioritize, and even actionize, if that's a word, results. So I can help take pressure off the security team, interact with the business and the system owners, communicate value, identify and mitigate risks, and usually in the form of corrective actions, help remove blockers and develop a path forward. So at a high level, that's a pretty typical day. And I know it sounds repetitive, and it really can be. But my 3 lessons learned were about my career progression as a business analyst to PM. And I've shared some real world examples in the day in the life of. So my next 2 lessons have been my strategy on how I got from there to here, and they're also part of how I'm going to go from here to there. And a big part of that has been self-path tribe. And we've heard this a couple of different times, a couple of different ways. So first, self. Look in the mirror, know yourself. You hear this a lot in security circles. Know your network, know your applications, know what normal looks like, know your baseline. Well, knowing yourself is also important in any career, not just cyber, but any career out there. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, your gap analysis, know your goals, know what you like to do, and know what you're good at. Know all of those things. Use that to help you define for yourself what it is that you want to do. Make it personal, make it personable, and make it actionable. So that's the first step in that I took in my journey. I took a hard look at myself. And then from there, you know where you're at and you know where you want to go. Well, now it's time to find your path. And the hardest part is starting. So you've identified your gaps, and now it's time to build on your strengths. How do I get my first job? How do I relate to tech, or how do I relate to cyber? Does my path involve enrolling in a school, finishing a degree, building a baseline of foundational knowledge, or even earning a certification? The most important part of the path is everyone's path is going to be different. Mine is unique to me. Yours is going to be unique to you. This is normal. It's expected. Embrace it. So my recommendation is to document your journey, either in a blog, on Medium, or making reoccurring posts on LinkedIn, or I believe someone earlier today said it, they have a journal that they keep. Do that so you can look back and see where you started from and where you're at. Because 6 years later, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, I can't believe I'm standing at the SANS New to Cyber Summit giving a presentation about my career. So do something like that. And this recommendation is not special to cybersecurity. In fact, when I was in high school, I had an English teacher who required us to put together a career passport, which was a writing portfolio. And part of that was a goals statement and essay. And my advice is to always be thinking about that kind of thing. Always have a portfolio of what you're learning and what you're interested in. And then next, I think of the three, the most important and at least the most fun looking is tribe. Your tribe is going to get you down your path. When you have time, and I alluded to this many hours ago, come for the cybersecurity, stay for the English literature. Well, look up John Donne. There is a very famous poem, No Man is an Island. It's pretty profound, and it's really where this idea came from. And thank you so much to my high school English teacher, Mrs. Carpenter, for making me do all of that work so many years ago. So find your tribe. Remember what I said the last job I ever got, I applied to was 6 years ago. All along the way, people in my network have reached out to me and said, hey, are you interested in this position? Do you want to interview for this position? And I'd say yes. Every single time I'd say yes. Even if I didn't think I had a chance, I took the opportunity and I interviewed for it. Whew. So find your tribe. Cybersecurity is expected to grow 32%. That's excellent news. Everyone here, and well, the numbers are dropping. Oh no. But there's a little over 1,000 people here. Everyone can be in or part of your tribe. So that's my mantra. How do I stay current? Well, when you know the answers to those questions about self-path tribe that I have presented to this point, you can start to be resourceful. And I've seen people in the chat ask about what kind of free resources exist. Well, how many people out there have one of these? So if you can't tell on screen, this is a library card. This is so important because when COVID hit, the first thing I did the day before we shut everything down was I went and got a Muskingum County library card. With this card, I could have any book in the state of Ohio that is in circulation delivered to my local branch within 48 hours. I could have any resource available. This card gives me access to LinkedIn Learning, free videos to learn cyber, to learn anything, project management, Jira, you name it. And this is specific to Muskingum County, but it also gives access to Udemy. And really the best part about being cyber adjacent is having that job and employment to gain experience while also learning tech and cyber on the job. And I have used a lot of free to me resources along the way. I've used Udemy to teach myself Python, AWS, Kubernetes, and Terraform because I had access to that. And everywhere that I have been, I have always had access to a free learning platform. So my advice is to go find whatever that is and take advantage of that. Even Wikipedia. I remember when I first started during my MBA, I realized that I could very well be a tech leader in my career. I started researching things on Wikipedia first. Like that's where I started. We talked all day long about OSINT. Use OSINT to plan your career. That's open source intelligence for those in the Slack that are like, what's OSINT? So take advantage of that. How many people here knew that if you went to CrowdStrike's website, you could actually go to their Encounter Lab and sign up for a free 24-hour tutorial in a cloud instance to test drive CrowdStrike Falcon. I've driven all of their platforms, by the way. So there's a ton of free resources out there and available to you. So once you know yourself, your path, and your tribe, then you can really start to be resourceful and take advantage of those. And now finally, and yep, I got about 8 minutes left. Perfect. How do I chart my career progression? Well, part of your tribe, and we've already mentioned mentorship, and I think we've covered it very excellent. We covered it in great detail. Identify people who are in the positions you want to be in, and just reach out to them, connect with them. Everyone here who has presented today has had to pitch their platform to the committee, and everybody on the committee had to approve their speech. So everybody that has presented is here because they want to be here. So don't feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Feel free to ask questions in Slack. If you're sitting there going, how can I take advantage of those things? Ask yourself the question. Look in the mirror. Ask yourself, am I being an active participant or am I just being another spectator? So outside of mentorship, and I bring this up just because it's been a very big portion in my journey, is education. And education has many different forms. Education can look like certifications. And I'm going to stand very firm on the importance of education. And very specifically, it's about learning, not just education formally, but informally as well. Stay hungry. Never once in my lifetime to this point have I ever regretted learning anything about anything, right? So my advice, though, is don't go broke pursuing education. I had mentioned I started as a customer service representative this month, 6 years ago. I was working part-time, 2 jobs while getting my MBA full-time. So don't go broke pursuing education. Find people that are going to pay for it. And there's tons of way to get this. Earlier, I had mentioned that I just finished my SANS Technical Institute cybersecurity engineering degree. I only paid a very small fraction of what the cost was for that because I used employer tuition assistance. So if you're cyber adjacent, or if you're working in any sort of field or program, take advantage of the resources that you have available through your current employer to finance higher education. Leverage those resources. And then when you're at the point where I'm at, and you're at the point where you want to be, start to pay it forward. Be the mentor you needed when you are where you are at now. And I can't believe I said that without being a tongue twister. So before I toss it back to Emily and Rich, here's a summary of what we talked about. First, the digital frontier continues to widen and broaden as it's defined. It's the only one that does. Cloud, AI, machine learning, quantum computing. This creates new opportunities, which means you can literally start anywhere in tech. The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is to start today. But you have to start. Second, perception is reality. And part of that is businesses can honestly today be defined as a technology firm with a business function. As a result, almost every job out there has some cybersecurity form or function inherent to every single one of its roles. So focus less on breaking into cyber, focus more on finding out what roles best suit you and your needs, and then master that tech stack. Find out where you want to live for the next 20 plus years. Master that technology. Learn how to use that tech securely. Don't just learn how to secure it. Don't just learn how to break it. Master how to securely build a network, not just I'm going to build a network and then go and secure it. Because you talk to any network security engineer, I promise you 100% of the time, they would rather build a secure network the first time, go live and not have any issues than to find a big problem 6 months from now. So decide for yourself who or what you want to be. Take an honest, hard look at where you are and where you're starting from. Use that as a guide on your path to align your goals and destination with your journey. A very, very key point that I want to bring up is success is not the destination. Success is the process. Success is the path. And then when you're on your path, make friends, build your network, pick your party. And this last slide, because I just love this graphic so much, and thank you AI for generating this for me, because your tribe is so critical to your journey. And yeah, I can't stress this enough. In the last 6 years, every single one of my job offers has come from my network. Every single one of them. The people who are worth knowing in this industry are where you want to be in 5 years. They're not going to mind if you reach out to them for guidance or mentorship. I promise you that. And those who do mind, they're not the ones worth knowing. So always remember, and this is a throwback to last year, and I feel like it needs to be paid forward this year and every single year from now on. There is room enough for everyone in cyber. So don't ever let anyone tell you that there isn't. And if you don't think that there's enough room for you, build a bigger table for yourself and invite others to it. So thank you. I believe we just have a couple minutes left, and I'm going to toss it back to Rich and Emily for questions.